France has long been sold to the world as the glittering capital of romance. You've seen the movies, read the books, heard the songs, cobblestone streets, whispered conversations in candlelit bistros, kisses on the Seine at sunset. But let's take off the rose-colored glasses for a moment and be honest. France, and especially Paris, isn't always the swoon-worthy dream it's made out to be. I'm not saying it's a terrible place, far from it. But if you're expecting non-stop love poems, violin serenades, and strangers locking eyes across cafes, you might want to slow your roll. Here are 5 reasons why France might not be quite as romantic as you think. Reason 1. The reality of Paris smells different. Let's just get this one out of the way first. Paris doesn't always smell like fresh bread and fine perfume. Depending on the season, the area, and the time of day, the City of Light has a very different bouquet. Public urination is unfortunately not uncommon. In fact, the city has had to install trottoirs, yes, those are public urinals, along the streets to discourage people from using alleyways. Not exactly the scent of romance. Combine that with the overflowing trash bins during sanitation strikes, the occasional waft from the metro, and the pigeons that seem to have no fear of people. And the vibe becomes a lot less midnight in Paris and a lot more Tuesday morning after a street party. Reason 2. The locals aren't exactly bursting with affection. There's this long-standing stereotype that French people are effortlessly flirty, passionate, and always on the brink of falling in love. But let's be real, they're not exactly throwing compliments and longing glances at every stranger who walks by. In fact, the average Parisian might seem downright cold if you're used to American friendliness or Latin American warmth. Don't expect service workers to fawn over you either. Customer service in France operates under a completely different cultural code. Waiters won't check on you every 5 minutes, and no one is going to pretend to be your best friend. It's not personal, it's just the way it is. But when you're hoping for magical moments with charming strangers, the lack of small talk and occasional gruffness can feel like a rude awakening. Reason 3. Romance doesn't thrive in crowds. Tourism in France is no joke. France is one of the most visited countries in the world, and Paris is constantly packed with people. Want a quiet moment under the Eiffel Tower? You'll be sharing it with 100 other couples and 24 street vendors trying to sell you tiny metal replicas. Dreaming of a sweet little kiss at the Pont des Arts? Good luck finding space between the influencers doing photo shoots and the teenagers practicing TikTok dances. The Louvre? You're lucky if you can even see the Mona Lisa over the sea of raised cell phones. Crowds aren't exactly a mood killer in themselves, but they definitely dilute the romantic fantasy. It's hard to be swept off your feet when you're just trying not to get elbowed. Reason 4. The weather has a mind of its own. You probably picture France bathed in golden light with soft breezes and cherry blossoms. And sure, that exists sometimes. But more often, especially in Paris, the weather is completely unpredictable. Rain can appear out of nowhere. Skies turn gray in seconds. And when it's cold, it's bone-chilling. You'll be trying to take a romantic walk along the Seine, and suddenly you're drenched, shivering, and ducking into a cafe not for ambiance, but to wring out your socks. And in the summer, it gets hot. Like, you'll sweat through your clothes before lunch hot. France's infrastructure isn't always great with heat waves either. That chic little hotel you booked may not even have air conditioning. Not exactly the dreamy backdrop you imagined. Reason 5. Romance is more of a marketing strategy. The truth is, a lot of France's romantic branding is just that. Branding. It's been carefully curated and sold to the world by filmmakers, authors, travel agencies, and Instagram influencers. And while there is something magical about the idea of love in Paris, the day-to-day experience often doesn't match up. You might find yourself surrounded by tired commuters on the metro rather than charming poets. That picturesque sidewalk cafe? It's charging you €9 for a lukewarm espresso, while secondhand smoke wafts in from 3 directions. You begin to realize that the Paris of your imagination is more about nostalgia and marketing than about real life. France wants you to think it's romantic, because romance sells. But the actual experience can be a bit more gritty and practical than poetic. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't have a romantic time in France. You absolutely can. There are still quiet streets, beautiful countryside towns, candlelit dinners, and moments that feel like they belong in a movie. But you have to work a little harder to find them, and it helps to keep your expectations in check. Because when you expect magic around every corner, Even a regular moment can feel like a disappointment. On the flip side, if you go in with eyes open, you might just stumble upon something real. Not the carefully curated romance of postcards, but something a little more human, like a simple conversation over wine with someone you love, or watching the city lights flicker from a quiet bridge. No camera in sight. That's the kind of romance that doesn't need to be sold. And that's the France worth falling for.